The CEO had 32 minutes to reach the hospital, and then her entire world would change forever. She stood alone beside her dead luxury car on a busy daytime highway, expensive heels sinking slightly into the dusty shoulder, while one missed call after another appeared on her phone. She had faced billion-dollar negotiations without trembling, but now her hands wouldn't stop shaking. Then an old pickup truck slowed beside her. Behind the wheel was a tired-looking single father with a little boy beside him. She climbed in because she had no other choice. But less than 5 minutes later, she looked into the back seat and saw something that made every breath disappear from her lungs. Beneath an old blue blanket was a battered brown teddy bear with a crooked red ribbon and one missing button eye. It was the exact bear she had placed in her 3-year-old daughter's arms before the child vanished from her life. If you believe kindness can create second chances, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to Dad's Soul Diaries. Because sometimes a stranger doesn't just give you a ride. Sometimes they unknowingly drive you toward the person you've spent years praying to find. Her name was Valeria Wren, and to the outside world, she seemed to have everything. At 39, she was the founder and CEO of a successful medical technology company. Her face appeared on magazine covers, business podcasts praised her leadership, and investors admired the way she could walk into a room full of powerful people and never appear intimidated. But behind the polished suits and carefully controlled expressions was a woman who had spent 16 years carrying an invisible wound. Valeria had a daughter named Rosalie. She remembered the child as a tiny girl with soft brown curls, bright hazel eyes, and an obsession with a battered teddy bear she called Button. The bear had originally belonged to Valeria's younger sister, but after her sister died as a child, Valeria's mother kept it safe. Years later, when Valeria became a mother herself, she gave it to Rosalie. It became the child's constant companion. She took it everywhere. She slept with it, ate breakfast beside it, and refused to leave the house without it. Rosalie disappeared when she was 3 years old. It happened during the most chaotic period of Valeria's life. Her company was struggling, her marriage had collapsed, and Rosalie had been receiving treatment for a serious respiratory condition. One afternoon, Valeria had left her daughter with a trusted caregiver while she attended an emergency business meeting. On the drive back, a highway accident caused a massive traffic jam. When she finally arrived, the caregiver was gone, the house was empty, and Rosalie had disappeared. The police became involved immediately. The investigation revealed that the caregiver had suffered an accident while taking Rosalie to a medical appointment. Rosalie had survived, but in the confusion she was transferred through an emergency children's system under incomplete records. Then another tragedy happened. The caregiver died from her injuries before investigators could determine exactly where the child had been taken. Valeria spent months searching. Then years. She hired investigators, contacted hospitals, visited social service offices, and traveled across several states. She never stopped believing Rosalie was alive. But eventually the trail disappeared into paperwork and closed files. Valeria's marriage ended completely. Her company survived, then grew, then became enormously successful. But every achievement felt strangely empty. She had a beautiful house with rooms nobody used. She had awards sitting in boxes. She had millions of dollars but would have traded all of it for one ordinary afternoon with her daughter. That afternoon, 16 years after Rosalie vanished, Valeria received an unexpected call from a children's hospital. A young woman had been admitted after fainting at work. During the medical examination, doctors discovered an unusual family history and an old identification document containing a name that had once appeared in Rosalie's missing person file. The connection wasn't confirmed, but the hospital had contacted Valeria because her old records still listed her as Rosalie's biological mother. Valeria didn't wait for another call. She grabbed her purse and drove toward the hospital. Then her car died. She was less than 20 miles away. Her assistant was unavailable. Her driver was across town. A taxi canceled. The hospital kept calling, but the battery on Valeria's phone was falling rapidly. She stood beside the road in broad daylight, watching vehicles pass, feeling more helpless than she had ever felt in a boardroom. Then an aging pickup truck slowed down. The driver was a man named Boone Mercer, 43 years old, with rough hands, tired eyes, and the quiet appearance of someone who had spent years working harder than life had rewarded him. His 8-year-old son, Kellen, sat in the passenger seat holding a small carton of apple juice. Boone worked as a construction electrician and had been raising Kellen alone since his wife died 3 years earlier from an illness that had left him struggling emotionally and financially. His pickup was old, the passenger window didn't close properly, and the dashboard had a crack running across it. But Boone saw a woman standing helplessly beside the road and stopped. He didn't know she was a CEO. He didn't know she was wealthy. He didn't know she was desperate to reach a hospital. He only knew she needed help. Valeria climbed into the truck and thanked him repeatedly. Boone simply told her they would get there as quickly as traffic allowed. Kellen glanced at her with the innocent curiosity children often have when adults are clearly upset. Valeria tried calling the hospital again, but her phone finally died. She closed her eyes for a moment and whispered a silent prayer. Boone noticed her trembling hands but didn't ask personal questions. He understood grief. He had experienced his own. Instead, he kept driving. The pickup smelled like coffee, engine oil, and children's crayons. There were tools behind the seats and a pile of old blankets in the back. Kellen's backpack sat on the floor. Valeria looked away from the child and toward the rear window. That was when she saw it. The teddy bear. Her heart stopped. It was sitting beneath a faded blue blanket. Brown fur. One crooked red ribbon. One missing button eye. A small patch sewn near the left paw. Valeria reached toward it with trembling fingers. She asked Boone where it came from. He looked in the rearview mirror and seemed confused by the question. He explained that the bear belonged to Kellen. The boy had found it years earlier inside an old storage box that had belonged to Boone's late wife, Marin. Kellen had become attached to it immediately. Valeria asked what the bear's name was. Boone said Kellen called it Button. Valeria couldn't breathe. She told him that name had belonged to her daughter's teddy bear. Boone slowed the truck. Valeria carefully lifted the bear. Her fingers found the stitching near the paw. She had made those stitches. She remembered being 23 years old, sitting beside Rosalie's hospital bed, sewing the torn fabric while her little girl slept. She remembered promising her daughter that Button would always stay with her. Tears filled Valeria's eyes. She asked Boone where his wife had gotten it. Boone said Marin had volunteered at a children's emergency shelter 16 years earlier. During that time, she had helped care for a little 3-year-old girl who had been temporarily placed there after a highway accident. The little girl had been frightened, confused, and barely willing to let anyone touch her. But she refused to let go of a teddy bear. The bear was Button. Valeria covered her mouth. She finally told Boone the truth. She was Rosalie's mother. The truck became silent. Even Kellen stopped moving. Boone looked at the woman sitting beside him and realized that the stranger he had picked up from the roadside might be the person his late wife had unknowingly tried to help all those years ago. He remembered something. After Marin died, Boone had found a box of her old volunteer records. Inside was a faded photograph of a little girl holding a teddy bear. Marin had written one sentence beneath it: "She deserves to know someone is looking for her." Boone had never understood what that meant. Now he did. He told Valeria that the box was still at his house. But there was something else. Marin had written down the name of the emergency foster family who had taken the little girl. Valeria's entire body shook. Boone immediately turned the truck around. They were going to his house. The hospital could wait a few more minutes. Because after 16 years, they finally had a real lead. They reached Boone's modest home and rushed inside. He pulled an old cardboard box from a closet. Inside were photographs, documents, volunteer notes, and a faded newspaper clipping. Valeria searched through everything with trembling hands. Then she found it. A name. A county. An old foster agency. And a photograph. A little girl with brown curls was sitting on a porch holding Button. Valeria collapsed into a chair. She recognized her daughter. Not because of the face alone. Because of the expression. Rosalie had always looked at the camera like she was trying to understand why someone was taking her picture. Valeria had seen that look thousands of times. She had never forgotten it. Boone immediately called the hospital. The hospital confirmed that the young woman who had been admitted that morning was indeed connected to the same foster family listed in Marin's records. Her name was Rosalie. She was 20 years old. And she was alive. Valeria reached the hospital just after sunset. For the first time all day, the world seemed strangely quiet. A social worker led her into a private room. There was a young woman sitting beside the window. She had long brown curls, hazel eyes, and a small scar above her eyebrow. Valeria recognized her immediately. Rosalie looked at the woman standing in the doorway. Neither moved. Neither spoke. Then Rosalie noticed the teddy bear in Valeria's arms. Her eyes widened. She whispered that she remembered Button. Valeria began crying. She wanted to run across the room, but she was afraid. Afraid that 16 years had created a distance too large to cross. Afraid that Rosalie would blame her. Afraid that the daughter she had searched for would not want her. Rosalie stood slowly. She walked toward her. Then she stopped only a few feet away. Valeria told her that she had searched for her. Every year. Every birthday. Every Christmas. Every night. She told her that she had never forgotten her. Rosalie cried. She admitted that she had spent years wondering why her mother never came back. She had believed that maybe she wasn't wanted. Valeria's heart broke. She told her that she had never stopped wanting her. The two women finally embraced. It wasn't the perfect reunion from a movie. There was too much pain. Too many missing years. Too many questions. But there was love. And sometimes love is enough to begin rebuilding what life has broken. Rosalie had been raised by a foster family who loved her deeply. They had given her a safe home, education, and a childhood filled with memories. Valeria never tried to erase them. She thanked them. She understood that Rosalie had survived because people had cared for her. Marin had cared. The foster family had cared. Boone had cared. Kellen had cared about a little teddy bear without knowing its history. And all those small acts had eventually created a bridge back to Valeria. In the months that followed, mother and daughter slowly learned each other. They went for coffee. They looked through old photographs. They watched movies together. They argued occasionally. They laughed sometimes. They cried often. Valeria learned that Rosalie loved astronomy, hated crowded restaurants, and had always wanted to become a pediatric nurse. Rosalie learned that her mother still kept her old baby blanket. She learned that Valeria had never removed her daughter's name from a small wooden box in her bedroom. Inside that box were photographs, hospital bracelets, birthday cards that had never been delivered, and a tiny handwritten note. The note simply said, "If you ever come home, I will be ready." One afternoon, Rosalie found the note. She held it for a long time. Then she hugged her mother. Valeria cried into her daughter's hair. She finally understood that she couldn't recover 16 years. Nobody could. But she could make sure the next 16 years were different. Boone and Kellen remained part of their lives. Valeria offered Boone financial help, but he refused. He told her that stopping beside a stranded person wasn't something you charged for. Instead, Valeria helped Boone expand his electrical business through a legitimate investment program. She insisted he accept it as a business partnership, not charity. Boone agreed. Kellen and Rosalie became close. And Button remained the symbol of the strange chain of events that had brought everyone together. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who believes in family and second chances, and subscribe to Dad's Soul Diaries. Your support helps these emotional stories reach people who may need a little hope today. And before the final moment, please comment, "One act of kindness can change everything," if you believe that helping a stranger can sometimes create a miracle you never expected. 1 year later, Valeria returned to the same stretch of road where her car had broken down. This time, she wasn't alone. Rosalie sat beside her. Boone drove the pickup. Kellen sat in the back. Button rested safely between mother and daughter. The sun was warm. The sky was clear. And Valeria looked out the window at the place where she had once stood terrified and helpless. She remembered believing that everything had gone wrong. But now she understood something. Her car had broken down. Her phone had died. Her plans had failed. And yet, somehow, those failures had led her to the exact person she had been searching for. Sometimes life doesn't open the door we expect. Sometimes it closes every familiar path until we're forced to take another road. And sometimes, on that unfamiliar road, kindness is waiting. A single father had stopped because he saw a stranger who needed help. His son had carried an old teddy bear. A woman who had died years earlier had preserved a clue. A lost daughter had remembered a name. And a mother had finally found her way home. Valeria once believed her greatest achievement was building a company worth millions. Now she knew better. Her greatest achievement was refusing to stop loving someone she couldn't find. And Rosalie's greatest gift wasn't simply returning to her mother's life. It was proving that 16 years of silence didn't have to be the final chapter. As the pickup disappeared down the sunlit road, Button's crooked red ribbon fluttered gently in the afternoon breeze. Valeria reached over and held her daughter's hand. Rosalie squeezed it. Neither needed to say anything. They had already said the most important thing through a single embrace. They were together. Finally. And sometimes, after years of searching, that's all a heart ever wanted.